It was an ordinary Wednesday morning, quiet outside the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington, D.C. The kind of morning where nothing is expected to happen, until everything changes. A sleek black government vehicle pulled up without ceremony. The security at the FBI's main entrance barely glanced up. But when the back door opened and Karoline Leavitt stepped out, the atmosphere shifted like a dropped match in dry grass. Karoline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history. Brilliant, media-savvy, and fiercely loyal to the president. She wasn't just another political figure. She was the face of the administration. No press, no escort, no warning. She adjusted her slim black glasses, gave a brief glance at the towering structure in front of her, and started walking. Her stride was calm, but the air around her felt like it was being vacuumed into the moment. Tom, a security officer at the main checkpoint, stepped forward with instinctive formality. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Karoline offered a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I need to see Director Cash." Tom paused. Cash Patel, director of the FBI, was not a man you visited unannounced. "I'm afraid that's not possible. He's in closed briefings today. You'll need an appointment." She stepped closer, her voice level. "Tell him Karoline Leavitt is here. He'll understand." Tom hesitated. Everyone knew who she was. But this wasn't routine. And the name she dropped wasn't a request. It was a code. The phone call Tom made lasted less than 10 seconds. He hung up and looked at her differently, as if suddenly realizing the scope of what she might be carrying. A silent nod. She was cleared. Inside, the FBI headquarters pulsed with quiet tension. Eyes followed her. Whispers trailed in her wake. A few staffers recorded on their phones before being ordered to stop. Newsrooms would catch wind within the hour. She was escorted through 2 layers of biometric security, then up to the 7th floor, Director Patel's domain. She said nothing during the walk, but her fingers grazed the edge of the black leather folder tucked under her arm. Inside it was a printout, a classified document labeled Stellar Rain. Only 5 people in government had access to it. She wasn't one of them. She hadn't slept the night before. Not since she found the document buried inside a secure White House database, mislabeled as an outdated budget report. But this wasn't about budgets. It was about truth, and it traced back to an incident 10 years earlier, an explosion in Eastern Europe, a failed operation the U.S. government denied even existed. The elevator dinged. Patel's office was guarded. The 2 agents outside the door gave curt nods and stepped aside. She entered alone. The room was dark wood and clinical light. Patel stood behind his desk, half surprised, half prepared. "Karoline," he said with a smile that looked forced. "Didn't expect to see you today." She dropped the folder on his desk. "I think you did." Outside, rain started to fall, barely noticeable at first. Inside, the storm was just beginning. Back at a major news studio, a breaking headline interrupted morning coverage. White House official seen entering FBI HQ. Sources say no meeting was scheduled. The anchor's expression tried to mask concern, but the words were enough to rattle the ticker. Unscheduled. FBI press secretary. Nobody knew what was unfolding behind the walls of America's most secure building. But something was cracking. Something no one expected, and Karoline Leavitt had just lit the fuse. The air inside the FBI headquarters was sharp and cold, like a hospital that never slept. Fluorescent lights flickered faintly above as Karoline Leavitt followed a silent agent down a long corridor. The walls were bare, clinical. No photographs, no distractions. Just marble, metal, and power. Each step echoed behind her like a warning. No phones, no cameras. The halls were soundproof. This was where truth was kept silent. Karoline said nothing. She kept her head high and her pace steady. Her eyes gave away nothing, but her mind was racing. This wasn't just a visit. It was a test, and it was dangerous. At the end of the corridor, 2 more agents stood guard outside a steel door. One gave a nod. The other opened it. Inside, behind a desk of polished black wood, was Director Kash Patel, the FBI's most guarded man. His eyes flicked upward briefly before returning to the file in his hand. He didn't stand. He didn't smile. "You have 5 minutes," he said flatly. Karoline stepped in and closed the door behind her. "I know what stellar rain is," she said quietly. Patel's pen stopped mid-signature. She placed a slim folder on the desk between them. It was marked classified, but with no seal. He didn't reach for it. He simply looked at her. "You're playing a very reckless game," he said. "I'm not playing," she replied. "You've been watching diplomats, journalists, even American citizens without warrants. That's illegal. And now it's being used to control elections overseas." The director finally leaned back in his chair. His fingers tapped together, patient and cold. "What makes you think I'm involved?" "Because your name is on 6 of the operation orders," she said, "and because you buried the Ukrainian informant who tried to testify in 2019. His body washed up in Warsaw 5 days after speaking with one of your handlers." Patel didn't blink. "You're digging through things you don't understand." "No," Karoline said. "I understand perfectly. I was briefed on a sanitized version of Stellar Rain 3 nights ago. The full version was buried in a Level 4 archive in the Bureau's internal net. Someone slipped the full file into my hands. That person is dead now." For the first time, Patel's expression shifted, only slightly. His jaw tightened. "You have no idea what this could trigger," he said. "That operation has ties across 4 allied governments. You go public with this, and it's not just careers that end. It's treaties, economies, lives." Karoline leaned forward, lowering her voice. "You're trying to frighten me." "I'm trying to warn you." She opened the folder and slid a single page forward. It contained a transcript of a private White House Situation Room call from 7 months ago. The president's voice was clearly marked. So was Kash Patel's. The topic: manipulating election narratives in a NATO-aligned nation using external surveillance assets. The room went silent. Patel didn't move. "I know you leaked this," he finally said. "Not directly. You're not that naive. But someone you trusted did." Karoline looked him straight in the eye. "You don't get to threaten me." "No," he replied. "But others will. You've gone too far to walk this back. If you were anyone else, you'd already be missing." A beat passed. Tension rose between them like fog on glass. "I'm not trying to bring down the government," she said. "I'm trying to save it." "By exposing black ops on a live stream?" "By telling the truth," she replied. He stood slowly, walking, to a cabinet behind his desk. He unlocked it with a fingerprint scan and took out a small metallic device, an encrypted signal scrambler. He turned it on. The room went dead. No recordings, no surveillance. "I'll give you this," he said, placing a second folder in front of her. "It's a partial debrief, redacted but real, enough to confirm Stellar Rain's reach. But if you take this public, every foreign embassy in DC will be in damage control mode within hours. Your friends overseas will become targets. Your press allies will be gagged. Do you really think you'll get more than one shot at this?" She took the folder, but didn't answer. "You're out of your depth," Patel added. "No," Karoline said, her voice low and calm. "I'm exactly where I need to be." She turned to leave, folder in hand. At the door, she paused. "There's a press conference in 4 hours," she said. "If the truth isn't told by then, I will." Without waiting for his reply, she walked out. Outside the office, agents watched her like she was a ghost. Somewhere, down the hall, a red phone began to ring. And in newsrooms across the country, a single headline began to trend. White House spokeswoman meets FBI director in secret. What are they hiding? The rain started just after midnight, falling in a quiet rhythm over Washington. A lone courier stepped out of a black SUV near the old metro station on F Street. He wore a gray hoodie, the hood pulled low. In his hand was a small, unmarked envelope. Inside it, a flash drive. It was delivered without a word to a mailbox registered to Samir Zidan, an independent journalist known for publishing intelligence leaks too radioactive for mainstream media. By the time Samir retrieved it, the sender was already out of the country. Back in his apartment, Samir inserted the drive into a heavily encrypted offline laptop. A simple folder appeared. Stellar Rain, unredacted. No passwords. Just a chain of numbered files. As he opened the first one, the screen filled with a classified memorandum, dated 2017, marked Eyes Only, Domestic Op Access. He froze. His eyes narrowed. In that moment, he knew something no journalist should ever know alone. Someone had handed him a grenade. He hit record on a second device and began reading aloud into his microphone. Across the city, Karoline sat inside a dim apartment borrowed from an old college friend. She'd changed clothes, gray sweatshirt, jeans, no makeup. Her phone was off, her laptop disconnected. The only light came from a tiny desk lamp and the soft blue glow of her screen. The folder from Patel sat unopened next to her, but she wasn't reading it yet. She was staring at an image on her laptop. It showed a man, late 30s, brown eyes, military haircut, standing beside a burned-out vehicle in the mountains of Ukraine. His name was Viktor Drozdov. He had once been a liaison for U.S. intelligence, and he was supposed to testify about Stellar Rain. Karoline knew what happened next. The car exploded 2 days after that photo was taken. The official story: local militia. The truth, she suspected, was far worse. The real damage of Stellar Rain wasn't just in its scope, it was in its betrayal. The program had started as a cross-border counterterrorism tool, but somewhere along the line, it had been hijacked. It was now watching American journalists, political opponents, even diplomats from allied countries, not to protect the nation, but to protect those in power. Karoline knew time was running out. A message pinged her screen, a secure chat window blinking on a VPN she rarely used. From stranger. They know you have it. You need to move. Her heart thudded. She closed the laptop. At that same hour, inside a steel-paneled room beneath Langley, a meeting was underway. 5 men and 1 woman sat around a conference table. No names, just titles. NSA, DIA, FBI, White House liaison, Cyber Command, and one from a foreign intelligence agency, unnamed, with a clipped European accent. She's in possession of multiple segments of the Stellar Rain archive, the NSA chief said. The foreign agent spoke coldly. If those files leak, there will be diplomatic consequences. The White House liaison looked up. We're not just talking embarrassment, we're talking military funding, surveillance alliances, tech-sharing treaties. We're talking war. No one responded. We've already scrubbed the cloud backups, the DIA man said. But there are rumors. Someone's feeding the press. Not just any press, the Cyber Command officer said. Zidan. He's got a live server in Iceland. We can't legally touch it. The European looked at the White House rep. Then perhaps it's time to stop worrying about legality. The next morning, Karoline stepped onto a quiet rooftop in northwest D.C., waiting for a signal. She held a burner phone and looked out at the city as if trying to memorize it. One final time. She wasn't running. She was going live. A voice crackled over the phone. Ready when you are. Within minutes, the live stream activated. The screen showed a blurred city skyline, and then her face. Calm, serious. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady but tense. "My name is Karoline Leavitt. Until yesterday, I was the press secretary of the United States. What I'm about. To share may end my career. It may even endanger my life. But I can no longer be silent." At that exact moment, inside newsrooms across the world, screens lit up with breaking headlines. Whistleblower goes live. High-ranking U.S. official exposes global surveillance program. In Langley, phones rang. Alerts flashed. The director's eyes widened. "She did it," someone whispered. Back in Karoline's apartment, her laptop screen blinked rapidly, multiple attempts to breach her network. And in a secure server farm in Iceland, Samir's upload hit 67%. 72%. If it finished, the world would know everything. Would you like me to continue with part 4 next, where the live interview goes viral and global tension erupts? The live stream spread like fire on dry grass. By the time Karoline Leavitt finished her third sentence, over 400,000 people were watching. 10 minutes later, that number passed 2 million. Screens in coffee shops, newsrooms, and foreign embassies flickered with her face, steady, pale, and unmistakably resolute. "I want to begin," she said, "by telling you something I was ordered never to reveal. There exists a multinational surveillance operation, codenamed Stellar Rain, that has been watching not just foreign threats, but journalists, diplomats, and American citizens, without legal warrants or oversight." In a studio at Global Network News, a stunned anchor went off-script mid-broadcast. I'm sorry," she said, looking off camera. "We're going live now to what appears to be an unauthorized broadcast by a senior White House official." Elsewhere, at a government war room in Brussels, NATO cyber defense officials paused a scheduled briefing. They stared in disbelief as Karoline listed names. Foreign diplomats flagged as threat actors, entire election teams surveilled under false intelligence, and covert funding pipelines that quietly redirected money into political campaigns in Eastern Europe. Every sentence landed like a gunshot. "The system was built for terrorism," Karoline said, "but it was repurposed to maintain power." Then she paused, looked directly into the lens, and delivered the words that would define the rest of the week's headlines. And this didn't happen without the knowledge of my superiors. That includes Director Patel, several members of the National Security Council, and yes, the President of the United States. The video cut out. Just like that. But the internet never forgets. 15 seconds after the stream ended, it was clipped, shared, mirrored, and posted in every language. Some called it brave, others called it treason. Within the hour, the hashtag on Stellar Rain leaks trended in 19 countries. At the White House, silence hung like fog. The president had just finished a classified call with the Israeli prime minister when a Secret Service agent whispered something in his ear. He turned pale, then angry. "Get her arrested," he barked. "Immediately." But it was too late for silence. In New York, Samir Zidan, now hiding in a secure location, watched his secure server finish uploading the full Stellar Rain file to a decentralized network of investigative journalists. A dozen media groups now had access. He knew what was coming. They wouldn't just come after Karoline now. They'd come after anyone who listened. Samir clicked send on a single message. Print everything. Let the world decide. By noon, emergency press briefings took over the day's schedule. The president's chief of staff stepped onto the podium looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. "This administration does not recognize the claims made by Ms. Leavitt," he said. "She is not authorized to speak on behalf of the White House. The so-called Stellar Rain documents are either fabricated or taken wildly out of context. We are currently investigating the origin of this disinformation campaign." But reporters weren't buying it. "Did the president authorize surveillance of American journalists?" one asked. "Why were foreign ambassadors flagged as internal threats? Is Ms. Leavitt in custody?" The official ignored all of them. He walked off, visibly shaken. By sunset, Protests formed in Washington, New York, Berlin, and Tel Aviv. People held signs with Karoline's face, superimposed over the words, "She told us." But not everyone was cheering. In Moscow, a Russian intelligence officer reviewed the leak and made a chilling observation. Stellar Rain had access points inside Russia's political network. That information, now public, gave the Kremlin all it needed to retaliate. In London, the MI6 director contacted the US Embassy demanding clarification. Was the UK a target or a partner, or both? Karoline, now in hiding, sat quietly in a rented safe house outside Arlington. Her laptop buzzed. A private network chat opened. Stranger 777. You're not done. They'll strike next. You exposed the surface. The core is still buried. She typed back with shaking fingers. Me. What's the core? Stranger 7. Red Lantern, Project Origin. Back before you were born. Your father's file is part of it. She stopped. Her eyes filled. Her father, a military intelligence officer, had died in a so-called training accident in 2003. She had always believed the official story. But now, she opened an old box she'd carried since college. Inside was one item she'd never thrown away, her father's last letter. It had ended with a strange line she'd never understood. If something happens to me, follow the red light. Karoline leaned back, heart pounding. Red Lantern wasn't just another surveillance tier. It was the blueprint, the thing Stellar Rain was built from, and her father had known. The attack began at 2:14 a.m. Not with guns, not with agents at her door, with silence. All cell towers within a 5-mile radius of Karoline's location blinked out at once. Wi-Fi networks froze. Traffic lights nearby turned green in every direction, then black. Someone had triggered a digital blackout in a single block of Arlington. Karoline's screen flickered. Her VPN crashed. Her backup device, military-grade, cold-stored, went hot. A warning message appeared in bold red. Network breach. Disconnect now. She shut the laptop immediately, breath catching in her throat. Then she heard it. A low mechanical hum, barely audible at first, then growing louder. She moved to the window. A black drone hovered silently above the rooftop across from hers. Small, fast, and armed with a signal scanner. Not for killing. For tracking. They weren't coming to eliminate her. They wanted to erase her. 15 miles away, Samir Zidan sat hunched in a second safe house. A bakery closed for renovations, power running from a hidden generator. He knew the moment Karoline's network went dark. She's compromised, he muttered, heart racing. They're ghosting her location. He opened his encrypted chat, typed one line, Phase 2 needs to launch, now. Within minutes, it began. In Berlin, a trusted media outlet published the second part of the Stellar Rain archive, a flowchart linking dozens of surveillance operations across 14 countries. Each node connected to financial accounts, PACs, and NGOs that had, over time, laundered intelligence to influence policy and elections. The story spread faster than the first. This time, there was no denying it. Bank records, signatures, voice transcripts, photos. The CIA issued a statement calling it an act of cyber war. The Kremlin called it proof of Western hypocrisy. Beijing simply smiled. Meanwhile, Karoline grabbed what little she had, cash, the flash drive, a printed copy of her father's letter, and slipped out the fire escape. The streets were dark, unusually quiet. She didn't wait for a car or phone. She moved on foot, fast and low. She had one destination now, one that wasn't on any map. Her father had once taken her there, on the outskirts of Quantico, to a long-abandoned Air Force relay station. This is where they listen, he'd whispered when she was 10. She thought he meant aliens. Now she wasn't so sure. Back in DC, Director Kash Patel stood at the head of a secure briefing inside a high-level containment room. No phones, no laptops, just eyes and folders. "Damage assessment?" he asked. A deputy answered, voice low. "The second leak confirms U.S. covert assets in allied governments. Several of those governments have activated countermeasures. London is freezing intelligence sharing. Germany wants a formal explanation. And there are rumors of a leak from within the Five Eyes." "Is this her?" Patel snapped. "Or someone else?" "We believe she's not working alone. Zidane's involved, obviously. But we've picked up chatter about something called Red Lantern. It predates stellar reign by nearly 2 decades. Everyone in the room went still. A second official, older, pale, spoke up. "Red Lantern was shelved after the Cold War. It wasn't meant to be activated again." Patel frowned. "Then why is her name tied to it?" "Because," the old man said, sliding a file forward, "her father was one of its architects, Colonel James Leavitt." The room darkened in tension. Patel knew then, this wasn't about exposure anymore. This was personal. As dawn broke, Karoline reached the old relay station. It was overgrown, hidden behind trees and barbed fence, half swallowed by nature. She broke through the rusted gate, heart pounding. Inside, it was just as she remembered. A low room, dusty equipment, dead air. But her father had left a trail. She climbed behind the transmitter rack and found a loose panel. Inside it, an old metal box. It clicked open with a soft hiss. Inside were tapes, photos, and a single ID badge marked Project Red Lantern, Level Black. She sat on the concrete floor, trembling. The tapes were labeled by year, 1997, 2002, 2003. She inserted the first one into an ancient player, static. Then a voice, familiar, deep. Her father. "They told us Red Lantern was insurance, that if the Cold War ever reignited, we'd be ready. What they didn't say was that we'd never... Stop using it. We've been listening to everyone, presidents, allies, even our own people." Another click. "The last operation we ran, it wasn't against an enemy. It was against an American congressman. They wanted leverage. I told them no." A pause. 3 days later, my helicopter crashed. Karoline covered her mouth. Tears slipped down her face. She wasn't just uncovering corruption now. She was finishing her father's mission. In Moscow, a state TV anchor broke from the script. "If what the Americans leaked is true, then their government has lost control of its own spies. The question now is, who's running the show?" In the U.S., the president gave an emergency address, denying everything. But his voice was shaking. And at an airbase in Nevada, 2 jets were being fueled. Their destination, a foreign ally's capital. The world was moving toward something much darker. And Karoline Leavitt had just found the match that could burn it all down. Would you like Part 6 next? Where Karoline races to release the Red Lantern tapes, government agents close in, and global leaders begin reacting on live television? Karoline knew the moment she pressed upload, there would be no turning back. The Red Lantern tapes, now digitized and encrypted, sat inside a secure archive routed through Iceland, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. She added one line, in the metadata. "If I disappear, release everything. No redactions." She clicked enter. The first tape began transmitting. A timer on her screen started counting down. 72 minutes to global release. It wasn't a bluff, it was a fuse. At the FBI Cyber Command Center, sirens erupted. Leavitt initiated a data cascade. An analyst yelled. "She's using a decentralized protocol. Can't be stopped from one end." Director Kash Patel slammed his hand on the table, then hit it from all ends. "Sir, we'd need cooperation from 6 countries and at least 2 cloud infrastructures. I don't care what it is. Get it done. A second, analyst shouted from the side. She's triggered a dead man's switch. If we intercept her signal directly, it'll push the files faster. Patel turned to his deputy. Where is she now? We triangated the signal, an abandoned relay post outside Quantico. Send a team. Use Ghost Protocol. I want her brought in alive. He paused. But if she resists, shut her down. Outside the station, Karoline heard them before she saw them, 2 low-flying helicopters sweeping the trees. On the ground, a convoy of unmarked SUVs crept toward the perimeter, silent and organized. She pulled a pistol from her father's old kit. She didn't want a war, but she wasn't going to let the truth die in a file drawer. Meanwhile, news outlets around the globe had begun piecing together the leaks. CNN aired grainy footage of covert meetings in Europe between U.S. officials and a now-dead former prime minister. BBC analysts revealed financial transfers connecting Red Lantern to early media buyouts during the Brexit campaign. Al Jazeera ran an exclusive tying the operation to intelligence manipulations in the Middle East, including drone strikes approved, using falsified threat assessments. The media couldn't verify it all yet, but they could smell the panic. A former NSA whistleblower appeared on a live stream. Red Lantern was the original playbook. Everything after, Stellar Rain, Data Field, even Pegasus, all just evolved versions of what started in 1997. The anchor leaned forward. And why would Karoline Leavitt risk her career, maybe her life, to expose it? The whistleblower paused. Because she finally saw how deep it went, and how much of her life was built on a lie. At a luxury compound in Geneva, a G7 emergency meeting was underway. France and Germany demanded clarification from the U.S. Japan threatened to freeze data cooperation. Canada pulled 2 diplomats from Washington. The American ambassador stood pale and defensive. "We're as disturbed by these revelations as you are," he said. "You misunderstand," the French foreign minister replied coldly. "We're not disturbed. We're furious." Back in the forest, Karoline was on the move, ducking under branches, climbing through overgrowth, flash drive secured around her neck. She didn't need to outrun the team forever. She just needed 71 more minutes. Then it would all go live. Newsrooms, social media, encrypted academic archives, even war crime tribunals. Red Lantern would be unkillable. But the forest wasn't quiet anymore. A voice rang through the trees. Male, sharp, amplified. "Karoline Leavitt, this is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. You are interfering with classified operations. Surrender now. You will not be harmed." She kept running. Then a second. Voice. Closer, softer, in her earpiece. "Karoline, it's Samir. Listen carefully." She ducked behind a fallen log and froze. "How are you talking to me?" "Mesh relay from the drone. We hijacked their comms frequency. You've got less than 10 minutes before they sweep the hill. You need to reach the backup tower." "There's a backup tower?" "Your father built it. Northwest Ridge, 1.4 miles. It's hardwired into a Cold War emergency line. No interference. No tracking." She didn't hesitate. She ran. In the Situation Room, the president sat grim-faced. An aide approached him, whispering, "Sir, the international response is collapsing. If those files go live, we may be accused of violating Geneva Privacy SE." The bullet never landed. A sharp electric crack echoed through the trees, followed by the sudden whine of interference. The agent's weapon jolted in his hands, disabled by an EMP burst from above. A second drone, this one friendly, hovered, high overhead, dispersing the FBI unit with blinding pulses of white light and static noise. By the time their vision returned, Karoline was gone. So was the flash drive, but the damage was already done. Across the world, screens went dark. Then, they lit up. A black and white image filled every major broadcast stream, Every social feed, every hacked billboard in every capital. Karoline Leavitt appeared, calm, resolute. Her voice carried clarity, but also the heaviness of what had been lost. My name is Karoline Leavitt. I was the press secretary to the President of the United States. What I'm about to share with you will change what you believe about governments, media, and power. The world held its breath. She told them about Red Lantern, about a secret U.S. operation that began in 1997, initially designed to intercept global threats, but which slowly morphed into something darker: mass manipulation, regime engineering, financial blackmail. It had buried leaders, hijacked elections, rewritten histories, and most damning of all, it had targeted U.S. citizens, whistleblowers, senators, even the president's own rivals. Then came the footage: handwritten memos, covert meetings, old CIA debriefs, leaked calls between corporate media heads and government advisors. And finally, her father's testimony. A grainy video of Colonel James Leavitt, eyes sunken, voice cracking. They used me. When I tried to stop it, they killed my team. The helicopter crash wasn't an accident. It was a warning. For 20 years, I've kept this box locked away, waiting for someone who would finish what I couldn't. Karoline's eyes were wet as she appeared again on screen. I am not a hero. I was part of the system. I lied to you. But I won't lie anymore. In Washington, the storm hit like a freight train. The president denied knowledge of Red Lantern, but documents tied him to briefings from as early as his second term in the Senate. An emergency congressional committee was formed within hours. Impeachment talks began. Director Kash Patel resigned, then vanished. Protests erupted outside the Capitol. Journalists once embedded in the political machinery now stood in open defiance. FBI servers were shut down, restarted, and purged. Over 60 federal agents were arrested by Internal Affairs. The Attorney General went live. We have failed the people. We let power hide in darkness. That ends now. But the shockwaves weren't limited to the U.S. In London, Parliament demanded a full inquiry into British cooperation with Red Lantern. In Paris, protesters surrounded the American embassy chanting, "La vérité, pas la peur." Truth, not fear. In Cairo, journalists chanted Karoline's name. In Nairobi, students marched with signs that read, "We were all watched." In Moscow and Beijing, the leaks were used as justification to crack down on dissidents, twisting Karoline's truth into a tool for further control. The world split, not between East and West, but between those who demanded light, and those who preferred shadows. As governments scrambled to contain the fallout, Karoline went silent. No one knew where she was. Some claimed she fled to Iceland. Others believed she was hidden in a military vault under whistleblower protection. But a week after the release, a new video surfaced, brief and untraceable. Karoline sat in a small, undecorated room. Her eyes were tired, but calm. "I didn't do this to destroy the country," she said. "I did it to save it." She paused. "The truth is heavy. It breaks things. But what we build after truth, that's what matters." Then she looked directly at the camera. "It's your country now." The message ended. Silence. Then the rebuild began. An international digital tribunal was formed to process the Red Lantern evidence. Dozens of retired and active officials were subpoenaed. Former intelligence leaders were publicly cross-examined by a new panel of citizens, scholars, and journalists. For the first time in decades, secrets were not buried, but dissected, in high schools. Karoline's speech was added to civics textbooks. In war rooms, generals rewrote doctrine about digital power, and in homes across the world, people looked at their devices, at their governments, with new eyes. Karoline didn't return to politics. She didn't need to. Her final act had rewritten the rules. 1 year later, a reporter named Elijah Rhodes, found himself in front of a stone cabin deep in the Icelandic countryside. No security. Just wind and snow. He knocked. The door opened slowly. Karoline stood there, a little older, a little softer. She wore no makeup, no suit. Just peace. "Thought you'd find me eventually," she said with a faint smile. Rhodes held up a mic. "I just have one question." She nodded. "What do you say to the people who still don't believe you?" Karoline looked up at the sky, where satellites still spun, then back at him. "I don't need them to believe me," she said softly. "I just need them to look, the end."